Alright, welcome back to another Honor of King tier list. We have finished the Clash Lane tier list, finished the ADC tier list. Now we are moving on to the mage one. Alright, not a lot of hero left, thankfully. Let's start with the mage. First mage is Angela. Okay, I've never actually encountered a lot of Angela. I would say I think it's pretty much at the higher end of the B tier. That's because of all the Angela that I've seen, they just camp in the bushes and then they know how to throw their S2 at a blind spot. So when enemy they have vision of the enemy because the enemy maybe is within the range of the minion wave, right? But the enemy does not have the vision of the Angela, so you can actually throw your S2 at the enemy from blind spot. And if you do that, if you familiarize yourself with that technique, right, it gets super annoying. Because if you're an assassin and then you see like ADC over there and you try to creep up to him, but the Angela just instantly just throws an S2 to your blind spot and it immediately follow up with her ultimate, you just instantly get deleted. So a lot of the Angela that I've seen actually know to use this technique, which makes her super deadly. Unfortunately, she requires a lot of aim and is quite inconsistent. That's why she can only be in B tier. She has very good wave clear. She has decent survivability with her ultimate shield. Ultimate gives her a very large shield. A bit of survivability. I would say not a lot of survivability, just a little bit. She doesn't have any dashes or anything like that, so that's a downside, which is why she can only be in situational. She excels in that technique I talked about just now, stunning people from their blind spot. She's able to clear minion wave and gank other lanes pretty fast. I think that's about it actually. Her wave clear is good, and wave clear is pretty important for mages because usually in losing games you want your mage to be able to clear the waves that is crashing into a high ground tower. So Angela can do that very well. Decent rotation speed thanks to a wave clear as well. So yeah, top of B tier. Cannot give her any higher because of mobility issues. In solo queue, you really need mages with more mobility. Next will be Heino. Maybe top of C tier. Heino is just... Is it okay to give him C tier? I would say I'll put him in C for now. I might move him to bottom B tier. The problem with Heino is he has no CC. At least Angela have a CC, Heino has no CC. His poke damage in the early game is also pretty pathetic. The damage is pretty pathetic. He needs quite a lot of damage items for him to pop off. Angela base damage is enough to one-shot people with her one of her 2-1-3 combo at the start. So I don't think Heino is better than Angela. The area where Heino is better than Angela is survivability, because he can always teleport away with his ultimate, and it's fairly annoying. But the thing about Mage Heino is that you need to press your ultimate very quick, right? Because you might just get bursted down while you are casting the ultimate if you don't have any defensive item on you. So I think he's pretty inconsistent as well. His survivability is pretty inconsistent, and his damage is inconsequential, and he has no CC. That's why he's only in the C tier. He has one outstanding area, which is his survivability, but it's not that great either. So I would say he's in C tier for now. Let's see. His late game is also not that great. Again, mages require CC. Heino has okay wave clear, not the best. Among mages, I would say he's below average. The Heino on my team is always camping under my own tower, their own tower, and not going to the other lane to assist. And even if they go to the other lane to assist without CC, they can't really contribute much. So the early game, right, I'm always at a disadvantage with a Heino on my team. So I really dislike seeing Heino, and I think he's not good, especially in high elo. And people have started to take note of this whenever people pick a heino, right, good players will often complain that it's a bad pick. Okay, next will be daji, easily the most hated mage of all. I'm actually gonna be definitely not S tier, so I hope I didn't shock you guys. I'm gonna put her at the top of bottom of A tier. I think I don't really need to elaborate on daji. Your S2 is auto lock skill. You don't really need to aim. That's very good for dealing with assassins. All you have to do is camp at the blind spot of your marksman or any other squishy units, and then if the assassin jumps onto him, right, just use your S2 on the marksman from their blind spot. From their perspective, right, it's like you suddenly appear and they get stunned instantly. So the good thing about daji is that her S2 is auto lock, right? So it's not like Angela's S2 where you have to aim it, which means that it's going to land perfectly 100% of the time. So it's a lot more consistent, I would say. She definitely has very bad wave clear, that's a downside. But it's okay wave clear, I would say. Now that I think about it, maybe not at the top of A tier. I still think Angela is better than daji. Sorry, at the bottom of A tier. I think she's in the high B tier, but not higher than Angela. Because in the losing game, right, daji is really, really bad. Yeah, in the losing game, you need to defend your high ground, and daji don't have the ability to do that. Right now, the meta jungler is Hansin, and against Hansin and my Shironoi, right, daji is actually a great pick. But against like Gun and Mo, against wan-er, she's a pretty horrible pick. So honestly, it's a very situational mage. Now that I think about it, maybe not so high, because in losing games she really cannot do anything. In the high ground defensive battle, she's like pretty much useless. But she's super easy to use though, so people can play her well. So if you use a meta mage, right, maybe you can utilize 60-70% of their skill ceiling. But when people play daji, right, they are able to utilize 100% of skill ceiling, which makes a mage able to pop off a little bit better. I would say because of the ease of use and because of her consistency, as long as you know how to use your S2 and drag it to the target instead of just spamming it, as long as you know how to do that, she's sitting in the B tier. I don't know if high B tier or middle B tier, but definitely in the B tier and not in the same tier as heino. Alright, next will be daochan. Oh man, daochan. Still better than heino. Bottom B tier, I would say. Actually worse than daji. I mean, against certain team composition, she's stronger than daji. Against tanks, she's stronger. Honestly, it depends on the handler skill. I see so many daochan that just sort of try to 1v3, 1v4 and keep dying at the start. Before they get their August 1, right, you should not engage the enemy that much. You only engage them after you get your August 1. No matter how confident you are in your S2 ability to dodge the enemy skills, right, it's very inconsistent if you do that. Yes, you can maybe get away in 1 or 2 games by 1v3, 1v4 at the start, before you get your August 1. But if you keep doing that, right, you'll find that your win rate is going to be very low. And a lot of daochan I've seen always try to 1v3, 1v4. And they always are the first to actually engage the enemy. When a tank should engage the enemy first, and the tank should eat all the skills by the enemy before daochan actually engage. So if we call it 进场, so if you are always the first to go in, you always just instantly get bursted down because the enemy all have their skills ready. You need the tank to absorb the damage first because you are not the tank, and a lot of daochan, right, play like they are the initiator, play like they are tank. So that's why I've seen a lot of horrible daochan. But to be fair, right, I cannot rate her below daji. She's a lot better against tanky lineups like Kaiser jungler, against a Kaiser jungler, against a Tuan jungler than daji. So I'll put her higher than daji. Also, if you play her well, right, she can actually go up to A tier. But because she's so inconsistent, I'll put her at B tier. In the late game damage, she's very good. She's not that great in 1v1 fights, but when it comes to a 1v3 fight, 1v4 fight, she is really good. Because her passive stacks sort of explode in an AoE area. So you need targets to have stacks on. Right, if you only have one target, you have less stacks, then you have less explosions, true damage explosions. She's excel in fights against multiple enemies. Her teamfight potential is very good, I would say, if you play her well. But because her range is so short, right, I can't rate her any more than B tier. She doesn't really have, her early game rotation is pretty bad. A lot of mages have a way better rangers than her, outranges her. She pretty much need to get to melee range in order to really do anything. And at the start, that makes her very inconsistent because she always have to engage the enemy, put herself in danger in close range without any defensive item. So she always get bursted down a lot in early game. Alright, late game she pops off quite a bit, but usually a lot of daochan that I see late game, they are always underfed, underfarmed because they die too much in the early game. So because of her inconsistency, I'm going to put her in middle B tier, above daji. Alright, next will be daqiao, I would say. Daqiao is probably top of B tier, maybe bottom A tier. She has a ton of utility, and her wave curl ability is pretty good because her skills, right, line up in a straight line. So even if they don't get a lot of AP scaling, because your skills actually line up and deals damage over time, right, she has very good wave clear. So she's able to rotate to other lanes fairly easily, and because of her ability to recall wherever she wants, she has a good sustain, so she can get back to the lane and get the minion wave very quick. So let's say she's in the top lane, she's assisting in the top lane or bottom lane. Once she finishes her gang, right, she can instantly teleport herself back to base, heal up, and then go to the mid lane. So her rotation is faster than most mages out there, which is why she's pretty viable as a mid laner. Her ultimate also does a fair bit of damage. Usually you won't use it as a damage dealing skill, but you certainly can. And I have to say, late game, you don't really notice it, but it adds up very quickly. The longer you stay in her ultimate, the lower her health will deplete. I mean, obviously, but you won't notice it at the start, and then once you notice it, you will realize that you are standing in her ultimate, it's too late. Because her ultimate actually provides a lot of utility for the team, and it also does a lot of damage. The main attraction is, her utility for the team, and also a wave clear. So she doesn't really have any hard counters, I would say. She's weak to assassins, yes, but she's better than all of these guys because she has a skill to get away. She has a S2 to allow herself to get away from assassins. Daochan is not weak to assassin, but she just gets outranged so badly. Daqiao has range and also a bit of survivability, so she's in the A tier. I would say not a traditional meta mage, so maybe at the bottom A tier, but still in the A tier. Let's see. I've never seen the Duolia mid, so I'm not even going to consider that. Dr. Bian in solo queue, honestly, pretty weak. Still above heino though. He's able to provide insane amount of healing to a team in team fights. His team fight utility is absolutely crazy. Unfortunately, his rotation is super slow. His wave clear, lane clear is super slow because he has a very short range, and when the enemy assassin doesn't reveal himself on the map, right, it's very difficult for Bian to go out and clear the waves because he has such a short range, so it's super easily gankable by assassins out there. He also does not have any mobility skills, so once he jump on by an enemy, he pretty much only can rely on his ultimate's healing, and that's not enough in the early game to keep him alive. So because of his bad rotation and bad survivability, I have to put him at the bottom of B tier. He's not going to a C tier because his team fight healing potential is absolutely crazy. He heals even better than Yan. He's pretty much the best healing hero in the entire game. So for that reason alone, I cannot put him any lower than B tier. And actually in coordinated team like groupings, not team grouping, like coordinated teams, he's actually like one of the better mages out there because of his insane healing ability and his ability to invade the enemy jungle in the early game. But because this is solo queue, people don't coordinate that well, and because of his bad rotation, if you don't have over reliance on support, I would say he's super reliant on support rotating to a mid lane to give vision for him and help him rotate. If the support doesn't do that, right, he's able to clear the wave slower than all of these mages out there because of his short range and because of his lack of control skills. So if an enemy assassin jumps onto him, he can't really CC the enemy like the Daji or Angela can. Alright, so he's going to the bottom B tier. Let's see. Gun and Mo. This guy. You think I'm going to put him in C tier? Absolutely not. He's in an S tier. If you watch my videos, right, you'll know that the hero that I ban the most, the hero that I always ban is Gun and Mo in pick mode, because his damage potential is absolutely nuts. His 1-2 out 1-2 combo is absolutely crazy. It deals so much burst damage, and as a marksman, right, it's super hard to survive with the Gun and Mo because he just does so much poke. He outrages a lot of marksmen out there. As soon as the marksman get within range of the enemy, right, as soon as the marksman get within range of the enemy and try to hit the enemy, Gun and Mo, if it locks onto the marksman will find it very difficult to survive without some kind of magic defense item. His threat to the backline is absolutely crazy. Also, he's also pretty good against assassin, because if the assassin does not have any CC skills and the assassin goes into melee range of him, right, he can just 1-2 the assassin and 2-3 the assassin, then 1, and the assassin get deleted immediately. Better yet, he can do 2-3, 1-3, 2-3, some 3 or 2 after his 1. After his ult refreshes his skill, he can instantly burst an enemy assassin down. So he can also counter attack assassins. Yeah, so he's absolutely busted, I would say. He has insane wave clear. You can clear the wave from a very safe distance. He's the mage with the highest amount of range. Nuwa has pretty much the equal amount of range as him, but even Nuwa does not have that much burst as a Gun and Mo. His wave clear is the best in the entire game, I would say. So because of that, his rotation speed, his base movement speed somehow is also pretty high. So he's able to rotate very quickly thanks to his wave clear. From a distance, he's able to safely wave clear from a distance. He can actually reach the minion wave from his own tower. That's how far he can hit the minions. Yeah, so I'll have to rate him nothing less than S tier. In fact, he might be the top S tier mage in my opinion. Okay, next will be I was looking at this and I was wondering why there are no mages. Next will be Gao. Okay, this guy is okay, maybe above Heino. I really rate Heino very poorly. He's sitting at the top of C tier maybe. He has the glaring weakness is that his range is absolutely pathetic. He sort of diaochan range, but he does not have the amount of versatility as diaochan. He pretty much only has burst damage and sustain damage when he has his ultimate active. Without his ultimate, it's pretty much useless. And a good assassin will know to bait out his ultimate, and then or maybe pay attention to his ultimate's cooldown and attack him when his ultimate is not active. When Gao doesn't have his ult, right, he's not able to do anything against the enemy assassin. Once he has his ult, right, he's able to counter attack the enemy assassin, provided that they are not that mobile like a Hansin, because Hansin can just easily use his S2 to get near to you, and then once you pop your ultimate, right, he can use his S1 to get away. and then once your ultimate ends, he can use his S1 to re-engage you. So he can only deal with low mobility assassins, or the assassins that can just go all in. The thing is, ultimate is cooldown is fairly long also, and his problem is his over reliance on his ultimate and his super short range. His wave clear is not that great either. He's not able to defend the high ground very well because he needs to get within melee range in order to really clear minion effectively using his S2. And then if he does that, he will get bursted down by, or maybe CC'd by the enemy support. So definitely not a meta mage right now, and I've not seen him for a while in peak mode. I've only seen him in the 1300s. I've not seen him above anything above 1500. Yeah, even in last season, I've barely seen him in peak mode. So yeah, definitely not a good pick, but it's still better than Heino in my opinion. At least when he has his ultimate, right, he's pretty strong. Heino is just, he's completely useless. He can only survive. Survivability is his biggest trait, biggest advantage, but he cannot really do much else. At least Gao have a lot of team fighting potential thanks to his ultimate. Again, the enemy might not know how to kite him properly, and if he's all in with his flicker, sometimes he can actually do very well in team fights. A lot more than Heino, I would say. So because of his stronger team fight potential, he's above Heino. Okay, that's it. Let's go on to the next mage. Zhuge, bottom of B tier. Pretty much the same issue as Heino and Gao. Not really Gao. Same issue as Heino, but a little bit better. He has a lot of survivability, but he doesn't do that well in team fights. He has very little utility. He has no CC, and a mage needs some kind of slow or some kind of CC. He has none of that, like just like Heino. All of the mages have some kind of slow or CC except these two guys. He does have a slow, I guess, if you consider his S2 a slow, but you have to get within melee range, which is super dangerous. His range is very short. You need to pretty much get the enemy low. The thing is, a mage need to be able to poke or provide some kind of utility. These two guys can do neither of those. Alright? If you can't poke, right, how are you going to get the enemy low for you to sort of pick them off in the first place? Right? You need somebody to get them low. Usually that's the job of the mage or the support. To poke the enemy, right? Usually it's the job of the mage, I would say. So if your enemy picks, your support picks like a Zhang, then who is going to poke the enemy and get them low? Nobody, right? That's why Zhuge is, in my opinion, is pretty horrible in the mid lane. He has decent wave clear, yes. He's not really afraid of assassins. That's why he's in the B tier and not in the C tier. But his other two areas, his lack of utility, lack of team fighting potential, really brings him down. So I can only put him at the bottom of the B tier. I would say in solo queue, he might be higher than Bian, but that's as high as he's going to get without any kind of CC. He's a lot better in the jungler though, so definitely not B tier in the jungle. I would say he's a pretty good overall hero, just not in the mid lane. Okay, next will be Lady Zhen. You guys already know how I feel about Lady Zhen. I've played her so much. She's probably a hero that I play the most in peak mode. You go support with her and not really with mage with her, but even as a mage, she's sitting at the bottom of the A tier. Her team fight potential is absolutely crazy. She's able to CC so many of the enemy, and she's also a fair bit of survivability thanks to her ultimate and her S1. You can use your S1 to freeze yourself and use that to negate most of the enemy's burst, enemy's assassin jumping onto you. And you can also negate like the Zhuge's ultimate, for example. Any skill that requires some casting time to land onto you, you can avoid that with your S1 on yourself. You can also use your ultimate against assassins that are trying to come into melee range to sort of freeze them on the spot. Alright, so those two skills alone give you a fair bit of survivability. And if you just use your S2 to mainly deal damage, and you keep your S1 and S3 active, then you only use your S2 to deal damage, you will still be able to deal a fair bit of damage thanks to a bouncing effect. So because of that, high survivability, high T5 potential, she's here in the A tier. Now she has a glaring downside, glaring weakness, is that the deaths actually undertune her damage, I think. For a good reason, I think, actually. Her damage used to be very higher and the CC used to be much higher. I will call her S tier during that time. But after her nerfs, her stat nerf, right, her wave clear is pretty horrible. That's why I would say she's suited to go in the support role rather than the mid lane. Cause a mid laner usually need wave clear. Her wave clear and rotation speed is just too slow. Alright, she's not able to rotate effectively compared to all of these two mages here. Even compared to some of these mages here, she can't really rotate effectively. Her wave movement speed is 360. It's on the lower end of the mages. She's not able to deal with assassins super well. She has a bit of survivability, but not something like a Zhuge's level or a Diaochan's level. Let's see. But because of her insane T5 potential and because of her decent survivability skills, I cannot put her anywhere any lower than A tier. Also in the late game, right, in high ground defense battles, you don't necessarily need to clear the enemy wave immediately. You can use the enemy minion wave, right, as a vector for your S1, as a bouncing medium for your S1. So you can actually do very long range poke with the enemy's minion wave in high ground defense battles. Alright, and so because of that, you can actually defend the high ground well. Not as well as Gun and Mo, definitely, but decently well compared to all of these mages anyway. So sort of the same as Angela, I would say, but because of her very good CC skills and T5 ability, I would say she's, and because of her higher survivability skills compared to Angela, she's one tier above Angela. Okay, next will be Liang. Oh my god, if you've seen my stream and my videos, you will know that Liang should go support. I think Liang mid is, Liang has a pretty good wave clear, so I'll give him that. But his rotation is pretty slow and is not that effective in team fights. I would say he's certainly not in the C tier. A lot of people go the wrong item on him. He needs to go full AP, CD and AP items, and not really defensive items. So many people just build pure tank on him, build the 20% cooldown reduction item on him, which is absolutely terrible and makes him deal no damage. But if you itemize him correctly, right, I would say he's above Diaochan. Alright, in the middle top of the B tier, higher B tier. Yeah. His problem is not the wave clear or the rotation. His rotation is actually okay as well. The problem is his team fight potential as a mage is not that great, but he's more of a like counter to assassins than a mage, I would say. His S1 and S3 are very suited for dealing against assassins, but they are not good for dealing poke damage in team fights. So some of these mages here are going to be able to poke a lot better than him. Yeah, so that's why he's better suited for a support role as a counter to assassins rather than as a mage. You need some other unit to do poking. That's why he's in the high B tier. Also, his survivability is actually shockingly little. Yes, you can out the assassin if he's jumping onto you, but if you are the only guy around, as soon as your ultimate ends, what are you going to do? You can put your S2, your S1 on the enemy just before your ultimate end to CC him a bit more. But after you use your ultimate and your S1, if the enemy has some kind of mobility skills and they re-engage onto you, there's nothing you can do except place an S2 on yourself, and just hope that the 2 S2 on yourself will be able to kill the enemy faster than they kill you. That's all you can do. So his survivability, he does have a bit of survivability, but usually against him, right, his cooldown, his ultimate cooldown is fairly long in the middle game, and in the early and middle game. So the enemy usually pay attention to his ultimate a lot, and without his ultimate, he's not able to deal with enemy assassins at all. And so he actually doesn't have that much survivability. So I would say he's sitting below Angela. I would say overall still better than Diaochan because of his wave clear potential. As I mentioned before, he's able to safely wave clear from a distance, from very safe distance actually, because all he has to do is place the circles down onto the minion wave, crashing into a high ground, and he can just back away into safety. Alright, so he's able to clear minion wave fairly quickly and fairly safely. For that reason, he's higher than Diaochan. His CC is more consistent than daji's also, I would say. So yeah, he's sitting in the high B tier. Next will be, well, there's no more mages here on this row here. Next will be my Shironoi. Okay, this might be controversial, but in my opinion is very dependent on the handler skill. Okay, a good Mai can be in the high A tiers, but overall I would say Mai is in the high B tier. Why? She has a huge weakness. She has very good advantages. She's excel in some areas, so she's able to 1v1 enemy assassin without any problem. She has no issues sort of counter attacking assassin if alright, they don't get a jump onto her, because she is pretty much an assassin herself, right? So she's able to camp the enemy assassin, but if the enemy assassin camp her first, right, she dies to enemy assassin quite easily. But overall, she's able to deal with the enemy assassin fairly well compared to a lot of these other mages here. Her mobility skills is absolutely insane also. She's the most mobile unit of all the mages here, I would say, which makes her early game rotation super good. The recent change makes her wave curve slightly better. It's still pretty horrible, and because of that, she has to give up her minion wave in order to rotate. But because of her very good early game teamfight potential, not teamfight, ganking potential, her early game gank is actually the best of all the mages here because of her insanely high mobility and a high CC, amount of CC that she has. Because of those, she's able to secure kills often in the early game, which lets her snowball. But okay, in the late game, she's horrible. She pretty much falls off a cliff. When sieging high ground and when defending against enemy encroaching onto a high ground, she's don't have any wave clear skills. Her huge downside is that she don't have any wave clear skill, and in order to wave clear properly, she need to S1 onto the minion wave. And if she does that right, she exposes herself to people standing in her blind spot. Alright, so usually what I'll do is, if I play as a liang or a yuhuan, I'll stand just ahead of the minion wave so that she cannot see me, but I can see her thanks to my minion pushing in. And when she goes and S1 the minion, as a liang, I immediately cast my S1 onto her and then follow up with my 2 and my ult and just delete her. So if you play as an assassin or poke mage like a gun and more, right, you can always try to camp at the blind spot, her blind spot, alright, and then aim your skills towards your minion, and then predict the moment where she will actually use her S1 on your minion, because her S1 have a fairly noticeable animation. When she's about to cast her S1, she'll rush forward, alright, and you are quick enough, you can actually predict her S1, and you can aim your skills where she's going to land. Her S1 during the casting is fairly predictable, right, because there's only one direction she can go, so she cannot really interrupt her skill halfway. So yeah, if you can do that right, you can actually burst her down fairly easily. Again, her huge problem is a wave clear. A mage needs to be able to poke and wave clear. Her poke and wave clear is too horrible. she makes up for it in her super high mobility, her high survivability to assassins, and also a early game gank potential. But her late game falls off a cliff because of her inability to poke and defend the high ground tower, or even siege the enemy's high ground tower. That's why I cannot put her any higher than B tier. In my opinion, she's has a high B tier, but not in the A tier. Because again, I've repeated myself for many times already. I place a lot of value on wave clear and what is it? Or wave clearing from a safe distance, and mine is not able to do that, and poke damage, and mine is not able to do that. So as a result, she is not like a good mage in my opinion. It's not a meta mage. What most people think. A lot of people wants to ban Mai Shiranui. In my opinion, she requires the handler to have very good skills in order to use. And even in those situations, right, she suffers from the issues that I mentioned earlier, from the wave clear and the inability to poke. So if the enemy has map sense and is able to predict where she is in the early game, and she can't actually snowball early game, if that happens, yes, she has very good ganking potential in the early game, and a lot of high elo players actually know that, so they know to defend against her. If the Mai is missing on the map, right, I'll always ping my teammates to notify them that she's missing, and she might be potentially camping in the farm lane or clash lane bush. So everybody is like particularly aware of her ganking potential in the early game, which is why sometimes it's hard for her to snowball, and when it's hard for her to snowball, late game she just falls off a cliff. Once you get a minion wave pushing onto the enemies like lanes, you get less and less bushes she is able to camp in, and eventually when she gets forced back to their high ground tower, right, she is pretty bad. Once she's not able to access any bushes out there, she pretty much becomes useless. So because of that, she can't be any higher than B tier in my opinion. Alright, next will be, again, she's very good in the low elo, because low elo have 0 map sense, right, so you can snowball early game very easily. But in high elo, that's not going to happen. A lot of people actually knows that Mai has extremely high mobility and has a lot of ganking potential, so they sort of get more alerted. They are on high alert a lot more than when fighting some of these mages out there. So it's harder for her to snowball in high elo. Let's see. Milady is next. Milady, that's a cool name, dude. Milady. I mean, it's a direct translation from Chinese, but it just sounds very weird. Milady is still better than Heino. Still better than Gao, in my opinion. She sits in the bottom of the B tier. Yeah, yes, exactly. She is a hard counter to daji. And somebody like Marco, because she's able to use her minions to block their hits, and she's a very good counter to Mai as well. Actually, she should be higher than Bian. She's very good counter to Mai, because her robots will just block their skills, block any non-AoE skills. She's able to split push tower down, and she's able to push tower down. Maybe not split push. It's very dangerous to split push at her, but she's able to push the tower down if they are not careful. She also has an auto lock ultimate, so auto lock skills are always very good, because nowadays enemy junglers are always assassins and very mobile units. Maybe not assassins, but very mobile units, and the ability to lock onto them without aiming your skills is super useful, because you are able to aim at the enemy a lot faster, because you can just spam the button, right, without aiming anywhere. So his ultimate is auto lock stun, sort of like Daji's, but with a lot of longer cooldown. So she have a bit of survivability thanks to that. Unfortunately, her overall survivability is still pretty low. Her ultimate is a fairly short cooldown in the late game, but it's still an ultimate skill and not like a small S1 S2 skill. So during that window, she's very prone to assassins. Without her ultimate, she pretty much have the 20 seconds window that she'll be susceptible to any kind of assassin or warrior or any other melee unit. So her teamfight potential honestly is okay, because her minions are actually very annoying to deal with, and the explosion damage from them actually deal a lot of damage late game. If you are not careful, you can always like get bursted down by enemy minions. Her minions, her summons, not really a minion, summons. But overall, just too low of a survivability. Her linker is actually okay. But her survivability is too low. Her teamfight potential is okay, but not great. So overall, I think she's above Zhouyu in my opinion. Yes, she's actually above Zhouyu because she is able to counter a lot of mages out there. Maybe not so much as Diaochan. She's probably the worst. Diaochan is probably her worst enemy, but she's counters like some mages out there pretty well. And she countered a lot of marksmen, because a lot of marksmen are reliant on their auto attack, and the minions can just soak up all of the marksmen's auto attack. Yeah, so she's pretty underrated, I would say. Hope to see her a lot more in peak mode. Okay, she is pretty reliant on the support though. Her rotation is fairly slow. Her wave clear is good, and she's able to do it for a safe distance, but her rotation is slow because she needs to walk around the river. She's not like a Zhouyu where he can walk along the river. She has to do a huge detour in your own jungle in order to get to in order to gank the enemy, because she has no mobility skills. So a Zhouyu can deal with animal assassins around because he has like dashes, but milady can't do that. That's why her ganking speed, rotating speed is lower than Zhougu's. But in teamfight, she has a lot more teamfight potential. So overall, I would say she's better than Zhouyu. Also, her auto lock ultimate is very useful in my opinion, which is why she's here. She's less consistent than daji, I would say. Yeah. Nuwa, I haven't seen much of her to really comment, but as of now, I can only put him in the high A tier. She's not S tier. I personally do not think she's S tier. She has crazy amount of burst damage. Once she gets the item up. In the early game, she's pretty trash. So, in the late game, she can delete an enemy unit at half health across the entire map, and she has very good wave clear in the late game. Mid to late game, I would say, but in the early game, she's just not that good. She has a good ganking potential thanks to her teleport skill. But honestly, her teamfight utility is not that high. She has barriers that she can place down, but I haven't really seen a nuwa that can use that to great effect in teamfight yet. I haven't seen a nuwa that's able to really utilize the barrier to their maximum potential. Usually it's just to trigger explosion from her S1 or her S4. So yeah, her early game is too horrible. That's a major glaring downside. Another downside of her is that she's pretty weak to assassins. So if the assassin jump onto her when the S1 is not ready, right, she can pretty much only flicker away. But you can actually use her when she's casting her teleport skill, right, her S3. She's actually CC immune. So you can use that to actually dodge like a Lady Zhen or like a daji CC. Yeah, interestingly, so that gives her a bit of survivability, but you need to be very quick. Your reaction time need to be very quick. But overall, I would say she's still quite weak to melee units. She's still quite weak to assassins. So because of that, I cannot put her in the S tier. Yeah, her early game, again, her major downside is the early game. I would say her weakness to melee units is not as great. as her early game weakness, not weakness, her early game uselessness. Yeah, weakness, useless. You get what I mean, right? His early game is not that useful at all. She can pretty much only clear her own minion under the tower until she reach around level 8, where she starts to pop off. So because of that, I can't put her in the S tier. Somebody like Gan and Mo, right? Immediately at level 4, he can already delete somebody by landing all his skills. But Nuwa will not be able to do that. And also, Gan and Mo is really not really scared of the enemy assassin thanks to his S1. But this Nuwa is scared of enemy assassins because her main damage dealing skill is her S1. If you don't use your S1 to hit the enemy, right, and leave your S1 as a survival skill, then you are essentially not dealing any damage to the enemy. So the S1 for the Gan and Mo is purely a survival skill. So that's what makes the difference between these two mages. They both have a skill to get rid of the enemy melee units, yes, but Gan and Mo's S1 is never used as a damage dealing skill, while Nuwa's S1 is mainly her damage dealing skill. So her survivability overall is a lot lower compared to Gan and Mo, even though they sort of have the same nature of skills. That's why she's in the A tier, and because of her weakness in the early game. Let's see. Maybe I'll change my opinion on her as we progress further into the season. I've not seen a lot of Nuwa yet, but as of now, I can only put her in the high A tier because of those issues that she faces. Next will be Mozi. Honestly, he shouldn't be a mid lane. I wouldn't put him in a mid lane. I wouldn't rate him as a mid lane, I'm sorry. He's just not good in the mid lane. If you want me to rate him in the mid lane, he's over here. Still better than Heino because he at least have some CC skills. But his wave clear is absolutely terrible. That's all I can say. He's very good CCS, very good rotating skills. His base movement speed is actually pretty quick. I think it's 370 compared to most majors 360. Oh no, wait, it might be 380. Yes, I think it's actually 380. So he's able to walk actually pretty fast. But his lane clear is absolutely abysmal. He has fairly good CC skills, but her S2 poke is fairly annoying. But it's still overall less poke than some of these majors up here. Her poke is very annoying, but his overall poke compared to these guys is not that high, and he's not able to defend the high ground at all. If the minions are crashing in, he has no wave clear ability, so yeah, he's not able to defend the enemy high ground or siege the high ground properly. Compared to some of these mages up here, that's why it's in C tier. Let's see. Next will be one thing I have to mention though. He's not really afraid of the enemy assassins. Because of his ultimate, if the enemy melee unit jumps onto you, right, you can use your ultimate, and then your jungler or anybody nearby can just follow up immediately. Because his CC is a very long 3.5 seconds, so the enemy's jungler is stuck in place for 3.5 seconds. They are not wearing gilded boots, resistant boots. So it's very hard to jump onto Mozi as a melee unit. Yeah, I guess that's another advantage of him, so I'm going to put him in the top C tier. Yeah, his main problem is with wave clear is absolutely terrible. It's easily the worst of all the mages here. Next will be Xiaoqiao, I think. Xiaoqiao, pretty mid, I would say. The definition of mid, I'll put him in here. Maybe here. I would say she fared better as a support than a mage. She's able to use her ultimate to clear the waves and rotate. So I guess that's a benefit of her. Now that I think about it, maybe a bit higher. Maybe somewhere over here. She's able to wave clear very well with her ult, and then able to rotate immediately after that. And her S2 is very good for ganking, because if you cast it when she's in the bush, right, it's a 2-second stun if you actually land it. So that's actually very good in team fights or ganking. yeah, and because of that, she's up here. She's also not very afraid of assassins because her passive gives her a pretty big shield. Also, she can use cast S1 or ultimate, S2 or ultimate on herself to deal with any enemy assassins. And usually an enemy assassin will not be able to burst her down unless they are really fat thanks to her shield. So it's pretty difficult to gank her. She also have good wave clear and ganking potential. Honestly, I might be underestimating her a bit. So I would say she's at the top of the B tier. But I can't go any higher than that because she doesn't really have a standout area. Her S2 is fairly easy to dodge. Once you do land it, it's great. But most of the time you are not going to land your S2. I would say maybe land your S2 like 30% of the time in the game. So it's very unreliable stun. She also does not do that much consistent poke damage. Yes, the S1 is a pretty long range poke, but she's stuck in place while she's doing it, which makes her very susceptible to the enemy's poke while she's casting her skill. She has a bit of survivability, she has good rotation, so overall pretty mediocre I would say, with one standout area, her wave clear ability. Does that make her go into the A tier? I would say no. Maybe the top of the B tier, above Mai, but nothing higher than B tier. Yeah. She's still better than Mai, I think, because Mai has a lot more ganking potential than compared to her. But in the late game, she's absolutely going to crush Mai in terms of usefulness, because her ability to defend the high ground or siege the enemy's high ground. By casting her ultimate ahead of the enemy's high ground, right, she can pretty much zone the enemy away from hitting the enemy minion. And because of that, she's able to get the high ground or defend the high ground a lot easier while being in a safe distance. So I would say she's at the top of the B tier, or even bottom A tier, but for now I'll put her top B tier. Next will be wan-er. Yeah, I would say, let me think. She suffers from the same problem as Mai. In the early game, is actually absolutely nuts. She's probably the most powerful mage in the early game, but her late game just falls off a cliff a lot harder than Mai in my opinion. And late game she always trades 1-for-1. Her teamfight potential is very bad. She gets very easily CC'd while she's casting her ultimate, and you need to have very good mechanical skills on her, because if you just fail even once, your ultimate is going to cooldown and you're going to be sitting duck because you have no dashes without your ultimate. Overall, I would say she's over here, maybe above daji, but she's over here. Honestly, a good wan-er paired with a daji will be here. Will be actually here at the top of the A tier. But as a whole, right, I cannot justify placing her any higher than mid B tier. Yeah, as she's so inconsistent, because as soon as you make a mistake in your dash, right, you'll just be a sitting duck, and you pretty much need to use your flicker immediately to get away. If you make a mistake during a team fight and you miss one of your crucial dash during a team fight and you land yourself in the middle of the enemy, you are just immediately dead. It doesn't matter if you have your flicker or not. So because she's so inconsistent, I'm going to put her here. Yeah, lower mid B tier. Next will be, actually, you know what, let's put Xiaoqiao in the bottom A tier, because there are too many people in the B tier. Next will be simayi, maybe. Simayi, I don't even know why this guy is played mid lane. He is pretty much here. No, actually, you know what? He's probably worse than heino. A mage needs to be able to poke and defend the high ground. He has none of this. Wave clear and defend the high ground and poke. He has none of this. Actually, you know what? I might put him in D tier. Yeah, please don't play him mid lane. He's just not that great. Even against AP heavy competitions, he's not that great as a mid laner. As a jungler, it's a different story, but as a mid laner, where you need to poke and defend the high ground, no, absolutely not. Unless your support is like a mage, like a liang or lady zhen, don't pick him in the mid lane, please. Next will be xiaoqiao. Also, in the mid lane, he does not have as much farm as when he's a jungler, and this guy really needs farm. So if he has the same amount of gold as the rest of the enemy, right, he's not really able to do much, especially in team fights. You need somebody to poke the enemy low, then he will go in. As an assassin, you only go in when they are low, right, to finish the enemy off. And if you have nobody to poke the enemy, then who's going to get them low in the first place for you to go in? So most of the time, you are faced against the simayi, right, he's just going back and forth on the spot, waiting for somebody on his team to get us low, and that's always never happen. And whenever he charges in, you just get immediately deleted. So I can't put him any higher than D tier. I'm sorry, but he's the worst mage out there, worst mid laner out there. Xiaoqiao is probably here, maybe above Angela or slightly below Angela. Yeah, here. Xiaoqiao is pretty decent, I would say. She has good wave clear thanks to her S1. She has a CC, pretty long CC, 1.5 second CC with her S2. Her ultimate also deals a good amount of AoE damage. Unfortunately, her is a kid. It's just way too simple, I would say. Then again, that makes her very easy to play, but she's very weak to the enemy's assassin, and she really depends on her itemization a lot. She need to get her item up. Yeah, so her early game is not that great. Her late game is pretty strong because of his lacking early game and a weakness to enemy assassins. I'm gonna put him here in the B tier. Let me think. Her late game damage is absolutely crazy though, and her teamfight potential is quite a bit thanks to a huge AoE ultimate. And the recent buffs makes her pretty viable. I'm gonna put her above Angela, I would say. Her damage skills are a bit better thanks to a shorter S1 cooldown. It was 5 seconds, now it's 4 seconds. Yeah, I think that is enough to make her in the high B tier, in the highest of the B tier. Bian, I think I will just move him down to C tier. Okay, let's see. Next will be Yuhuan, I think. This might be controversial. I just think that Yuhuan is not good in the mid lane. She's much better as a jungler or support. As a mid lane, she's mediocre at best. Maybe over here. She's in the mid B tier if you want to play her mid lane. She has a lot of survivability, but her wave clear is low, and she doesn't really have that much mobility. Like roaming mobility. She has a lot of survivability thanks to her ultimate, but her poke is not great as a mid laner. Maybe against above Angela just because of her survivability, but she's able to poke a lot less compared to. Alright, so let's continue. Yuhuan, because of her high survivability, okay-ish poke, it's not great. A mage pretty much need a lot of burst damage. She does not really have any burst damage. Her rotation is not that great compared to some of the other meta mages out there, so I cannot justify placing her any higher than here. Her wave clear is actually pretty slow compared to some other mages here, so that's why I cannot put her any higher than B tier. If you want to play Yuhuan, please don't play her mid. Please play her either jungler or support. You can watch my stream or my videos to see how I play her. Okay, let's continue. There is. I'm living with my family right now, so my other family members are causing a ruckus. But let's continue. Next mage will be zhouyu, I think. You see the last mage? No, we have ziya as well. Okay, let's go with zhouyu. I think zhouyu personally is pretty underrated. His wave clear is absolutely crazy. His S2 and S1 combo allows him to spread his fire insanely well. Also, he has a fair bit of sustain. Thanks to his fire, you can actually sort of spread multiple fires by pushing your fire into a wall. So you can sort of stack 4 flames together at once in order for him to get 4 times the amount of healing in one spot. So he has pretty good sustain. He has his S1 to sort of disengage from enemy assassins. The problem is that his S1 is also a damage dealing skill. You pretty much use your S1 to spread your S2 out. So how I play zhouyu is I usually don't use my S1 haphazardly unless there are teammates nearby. I use my S1 sort of as a defensive measure against assassins that are jumping onto me. And I only use my S2 to deal minion waves or poke the enemy. The problem with him is that when he's casting his S2, he actually stops on the spot. That's why he's pretty susceptible to enemy attack while he's casting his skills, because they are relatively long and obvious casting fire casting animation. I would say he's definitely underrated, but I don't think I can justify placing him in A tier. I would say he's in the top B tier because of his crazy wave clear potential, and also because he has a pretty decent survival skill, which is his S1. His ultimate is also a CC skill and with a very short cooldown, so his teamfight potential is also great. Overall, I don't see many zhouyu around, but overall I would say he's in the top B tier, but not in the A tier. Okay, I think let's move on to ziya next. Ziya, let's make sure that we have covered all the mages here. Yeah, let's move on to ziya. Ziya, I think he somewhere in the B tier. Wow, this B tier is getting very full. He's somewhere in the B tier, but I cannot figure out where. His S2, he need to pause while he's casting his S2 or his S1, so that's a problem. His S2 is a pretty reliable stun. His S1 is a AoE damage that is not that great. It's sort of like a Princess Frost S1, but a bit weaker in my opinion. And he's very squishy. He doesn't have Princess Frost shield, so it's pretty much like a Princess Frost, I would say, with a more reliable S2 and a less good S1 without the passive shield. His ultimate also have shares a common feature with this person over here, and that is very good for wave clear. But unfortunately, he's just a watered down Ice Frost Princess. If you want to play him, you might as well just play Frost Princess. So overall, I would say he's in the mid B tier. Is he above the below Liang? I would say he's above Liang, because when he gets to level 15, he can actually out a teammate. He can use his passive thingy or the teammate and make them level 18. Also, he can slowly get himself to level 18, so that's good. Because of those two quirks, right, I would say he might be here. Before yuhuan, I would say. Yeah. Let me think. Yeah, I'll say he's over here. Still very prone to assassins, but because of his similarity to this person over here, and because of his level 15 quirk. He's also able to outlevel a lot of other units a lot faster thanks to his passive. So that's another advantage. I would say it's actually better than Yuhuan because of that. Yeah. But because of his inability to shield and slow the enemy assassin, unlike Frost Princess here, his survivability is somewhat lacking, so I can only put him here. Also, he doesn't have any dash skills, obviously, so very weak to assassins. Zhuge, there's too many heroes in B tier. I might consider placing Zhouyu over here and Zhuge down in the top C tier of the C tier. I think this is a somewhat more justified tier list. Nuwa, I currently only think there's one meta mage out there, which is Gun and Mo. Unfortunately, I don't think Nuwa is a S tier yet. And all of these mages have a pretty big weakness, and all of them either have bad wave clear, or one of three things missing. Good wave clear, survivability against enemy assassins, and good poke, and ability to defend the high ground. All of these mages here, right, are missing two of these three things, and the mages here, right, are generally excel in one of this area, but not all of them. And Gun and Mo is the only mage that excels in all three fields. He does not fear assassins at all because of his S1. Okay, he's able to burst the enemy down. He has the highest burst damage of all the mages out there. He has super long range and is able to wave clear very safely and very speedily as well, and is able to rotate very quickly. And his team fight potential is also very good because as he does not have any CC, that's the only problem. But he can just randomly cast his skill and then be able to hit a lot of people in a team fight. Alright, and if you do hit like even 50% of your skills, you will be able to do an insane amount of damage because he has a fairly short cooldown. When he builds CC items, he has a fairly short cooldown. He's able to spam his skills actually a lot in the late game, so his damage potential is actually insane. He's the only mage where he's really strong without any kind of CC skills. I guess his S1 is a CC, but not really. He's more of a survivability skill. But he's the only mage that I would say can achieve this without any kind of CC, just because of how insanely crazy his damage is. Overall, this is my tier list for the mage, and I'll see you guys in the jungle tier list. I will not be doing a support tier list, by the way. I want to leave it at that for as a secret. If you watch my streams and my videos, pretty much already know what some of the meta support I think right now are. So I wouldn't put the support in the tier list, separate tier list video. Alright, so see you guys in the final jungle tier list video. Bye for now.